Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I'm going to talk about how I am the most pathological person on the planet. Obviously, as a joke, I am not, but I've gone through a lot of contacts with healthcare recently, and it sucks. And I work in healthcare, so I've seen the other side of it, and yeah, it's kind of weird being a doctor and being a patient at the same time, because like I don't know how to think, I don't know what I'm doing, everything is just crazy. I got into an argument with my doctor like a week or two ago, and she said that or it was a week ago actually, and she told me, oh well, I basically was a misunderstanding, but it was, I think that anyone could have had that misunderstanding, because I really did not understand what the doctor was talking about. And she was saying certain things, but she said that today she said that she didn't mean things in that way at all. And I'm like, it's kind of like being gaslit, but okay, I'll pretend that she wasn't like trying to manipulate her certain way of seeing things on me. But it did feel like I couldn't trust myself. Like, what did I say that made this wrong, And I hate that feeling because I don't really know, like, well, was it something that I said? Was it something that she said? What was going on? I do get pretty anxious about this. I don't really understand things. And I feel like I'm an alien in... Yeah. Anyway. The doctor asked me today if I was lonely. I was like, yeah, I got pretty angry at her. And I said, why are you asking me that question? She was like, oh, well, because you live alone. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter if I live alone. I'm fine this way. This isn't what we're here to talk about. Anyway, lots of misunderstandings, lots of problems. But in the end, she said that she would write me 25% sick leave. So that means I work 75%, so that I can work 2 hours less each day, because I have a 40-hour work week. And I was like, okay, I don't know how that's going to work though, because yes, I can leave work at 3, and that means I don't need to feel guilty if I leave work early. But at the same time, it will still be the same amount of work that I will have to do in just a shorter amount of time. But I knew about this problem, so I was like, thank you for listening to me. And we ended up like, saying she doesn't speak good Swedish, and I said, yeah, well, I have a hard time expressing what I need, and I said I'm also a doctor, so it's difficult, and she said yes, she knows. And so in the end I managed to like kind of smooth it over, but it was a big misunderstanding. And I'm like, am I the crazy one? Well, according to them I am, yeah, of course. But I don't think that it should be this hard. Anyway, so I was sitting and, I was sitting and reading my own journal, which, not recommended. My medical history, basically. And I was sitting there reading my journal, and it's, it was pretty funny, okay? I can laugh at this because this is my therapist writing this, and she sent a referral to a clinic that is not the psychiatric clinic, which thank God, because I'm going to work at the psychiatric clinic in January on my placement. So I don't want to be diagnosed at the same place I work. But if this place doesn't take me, then I will be forced to go to the psychiatry ward. So that sucks. But okay. So we talked about my memory and all sorts of things. I have a hard time doing like counting in my head and, you know, math in my head. I can't do that really well. I have a hard time with buying things and brushing my teeth and all this stuff. And I have a hard time coming on time. I'm not on time at work. I have a hard time seeing how long things will take. My temperament is that I have a lot of feelings on the inside, but it's not always that I show them. Very INFP, total INFP. I am already diagnosed INFP, obviously. You know, I'm not diagnosed autistic, but yeah. And I'm not diagnosed ADHD either. But I am a certified INFP. Certified by me. Okay. And the other INFPs on YouTube. Except those that think that I'm an ISTJ. She talks about how in her computer, she has 100 bookmarks with clothes that she wants to buy, but she never buys them. Totally normal behavior, obviously. Okay. She doesn't have bouts of aggression. That's good, right? I'm not the most pathological person alive, apparently. I have a hard time with social context because I'm either all or nothing. I don't talk to people I don't know well, and I talk too much with people that I know well. I was bullied. I don't know why. I don't like that, but okay. Why should I know why I've been bullied? Food for thought. Okay. Ingrid tries to avoid bigger social events. Okay. And here, this is the interesting part. She talks about how she reacts for me, like how she perceives me, which is very strange, you know? It's like being put on a microscope and dissected, while at the same time, like her being blind to what is inside. Because she's a sensor, and sensors don't understand intuitives, which I will say is kind of a problem in this case. But, so she doesn't really understand intuitive people. She says, but anyway, there are certain things here that could show autism or ADHD, and so I will give her credit for that. She says, in our conversations, she often has her head like to the side and does not look at me in the eyes. Ingrid says that a nurse at her job has been irritated at her and asked if she listened. Ingrid, that was looking at the computer screen, understood that she has to look at the nurse and pretend that she's listening, when actually it was harder for her to understand what the nurse was saying, so she had to pretend. Ingrid has a lively face, you could say. There's always something going on. She laughs often and loudly, but it's not always as a discussion partner or a conversation partner understands the jokes, doesn't understand the other person isn't always in on the joke. Okay. Yeah, I have a sense of humor that a lot of people don't get. I think that INFPs get my sense of humor, but otherwise, not really. She says that she doesn't have the same frames of reference than other people. If a patient says something like, men are the way that they are, Ingrid doesn't understand because she hasn't lived with a man. That she doesn't need to have been with a man to understand and to use this phrase is strange for her. Well, that's kind of a bad example, but okay. It is kind of, you know, I think that sensors have a different kind of empathy than intuitives. Like, Sensors are in a practical world and understand in a practical sense what other person needs. You know, for me, I have to do these intuitive leaps. And often these leaps are much more effective than the practical. But sometimes it's a little bit hit and miss, you know. Sometimes it goes really well, and sometimes you meet a sensor who doesn't understand this situation at all. Okay. She doesn't understand how it is to be a mom because she hasn't been a mom. Shocker. Anyway, she talks a little bit more about things. She talks about if I don't have like clear instructions, I don't know what to do. Often because nobody has shown me how to do the thing. Like, for example, I was supposed to like make the sheets for old people at an old age home, and like I never really learned how to do it, so obviously I can't do it. So I put the opening of the sheets by the head instead of by the feet where it's supposed to be. But I didn't know what was like the norm. Blah, blah, blah. Then she talks about my friendships. There have been problems lately, and I won't talk more about that. But it has been very distressing for me. Basically, I don't have a close relationship, and I don't like yearn for a close relationship either, which, okay, can point to many different things. That doesn't mean that I have autism, okay? It can mean that I'm an INFP, that is simply very introverted. It could be that I am asexual, which I am. It could mean that I'm traumatized. I don't want to be in a close relationship. You know? I mean, that's something that happens. Some people have trauma, okay? We all have trauma. I have some trauma. And yes, it can mean that I have autism. But that's not the first thing that will leap to my brain. But okay. She hates moving. She hates change. Well, yes, I don't like moving to a new place because there's so much to do. Okay. My job has decided to take away the Tuesday breakfast. And then I jokingly said that I'm not going to work if there's no Tuesday breakfast. And she took that as literal, that yes, I will stop going to work if I don't get breakfast. Misunderstanding, always. Anyway, Ingrid describes herself as hypersensitive. And when she asked me, like, would you describe yourself as sensitive? I said, yes, of course. Everybody, my whole entire life, has said that I've been sensitive since I learned words. Since the first time I learned words, people have told me, oh, they said 3 things. She said, oh, you're so shy. 2, you're so sensitive. And 3, you're so stubborn. And I didn't even know what the word sensitive and stubborn meant. I already was being told these things. So I know that I have problems with this. But it wasn't emotionally that she meant this. She meant physically. And yes, but then she only had one follow-up question, which is kind of bad. She asked me if I had any problems with different materials, like clothes. She didn't ask me about lights. She didn't ask me about sounds. Like, there are 5 senses, you know? More than 5. There are many senses. Intuitives have the 6th sense. Okay. But, yeah, it kind of... So I did say, yes, I have problems with certain materials. That's why INFPs, we don't dress well, because we just dress in what is most comfortable for us, and we don't like certain cuts and certain fabrics. It just sucks. Okay, let's see. Ingrid has difficulties with routines. She didn't learn any routines from her parents because they were hoarders, extreme hoarders. And so she never learned how to cook. Ingrid's house had tons of stuff that was occupying the chairs and bathroom and other things. Anyway, when I first met Ingrid, she was training on cooking pasta and making tomato sauce with tomatoes and onions. Now she says that she can make pizza with these ready-made pizza kits. She also likes broccoli and zucchini. She has Googled other recipes but doesn't know which to choose. She doesn't have that many other ingredients at home because she only makes simple meals that don't have these ingredients. Often she eats snacks like a banana or chocolate instead of food. Okay, so that was that. So the thing that makes me most laugh is actually having an objective account of somebody, a censor, of how they see me as a person, as an interesting creature to to write about. Pretty funny. I don't know. I can only laugh at it, otherwise I'm going to cry about it. So, yeah, I am a pretty pathological person, apparently. It's not great, but she hasn't seen the worst of it. That's the worst. That's the worst, is that I'm crazier than what I actually said during these meetings. She doesn't know. She knows I have a YouTube channel. I've told her that. But she doesn't know that my YouTube channel is about personality types. That would make me the height of crazy. I don't think that she'd take me seriously if I told her that. Also, she doesn't know. There's so much that she doesn't know about my inner world, about like how I think, what's going on in my brain. Like, I'm sorry for being such a strange person. You know, I'm not sorry for it, but I mean, poor her for having to deal with me. But that's her job. That's her job. She has to deal with these kinds of people. But I feel like she's... Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know what is normal and what is not. And like... Now I'm here. So... I've been reading The Bell Jar, which also does not help matters, okay? For you guys who don't know The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I've never read it before, and this is something that teenage girls read, you know? And it feels like it's been written by a teenage girl, okay? But Sylvia Plath only lived until she was like 30-something. And she had like 2 kids, and she killed herself like about a month after writing, like the book was published. And she had several like attempts in her life, and she was in psychiatric wards a lot of time, and she got well, what they called then shock therapy, which is electroconvulsive therapy nowadays is called. It was probably not well tested at the time, and yeah, she did not get better from those treatments, but they didn't have medication for these kinds of things. All they had was anxiolytics. They did not have SSRIs. So, and also a lot of her problems are because of the sexism, the misogyny in society, where basically if she was not married and, you know, doing the correct thing, she would basically, like, you know, live as a spinster and poor for the rest of her life. So it was a tough time for her and for a lot of women at the time. But I do have to warn, if somebody's going to read it, because I do recommend this book a lot, is that Sylvia Plath is by no means a saint. She is very racist, anti-Semitic. She is also pretty blatant about it in her book. It was her only book that she published. So, yeah. And it's based on her life story. So, the main character there is a reflection of her. So the thoughts that the main character has is her thoughts. So it did cringe a little bit on the inside when she talked about, well, the N-word and the like. And her alter ego is Asian, I think. I don't really understand this, but she finds herself ugly, obviously, in this book. And it's a great book to understand how the feeling of a young girl going insane, basically. And I felt that. I felt it all. Not as bad as Sylvia Plath maybe did. But there is, you know, the numbness of depression is very present in there. And the way that she writes, it is good writing. But the author, you know, some caveats there. But I do recommend the Bell Jar, but not if you are trying to deal with psychiatry, with therapists and that kind of thing at the moment. If you're not, you know, like if you're in a stable place, read it. It's great. You can really feel the depression emanating from the book. But she is really gaslit by like the people at the hospital in the book, and you know, the therapies, the asylums, everything pretty bleak, pretty dark. And you know, you could tell that psych ward then was in its infancy, and basically people could be locked in. Well, by people I mean minorities and women would be locked in there because they did something socially unacceptable only, you know. They'd also be locked in there if they were, well, sick psychologically. But you know, I'll let you read the story, basically. But it's not a good book to read if you're feeling gaslit by your mental health professionals, which is kind of what I was feeling. Because, well, me talking to the doctor, and we were talking about what is normal, what is not, and I get very confused. I can't argue my case. I think as an INFP, it's difficult for me to improvise arguments on the spot. I'm very good at writing down arguments in a letter or in an essay if I have a lot of time to do the TE work of doing it. But I'm not good at doing argumentation, like, because speech is pretty instantaneous. You can't go over and like rewrite what you said. And also my brain, I cannot construct an argument in my head in the same way as like a TI user can. And it's hard for me to not be emotionally involved at the same time, you know, because as a doctor, I have to turn off my brain in order to talk to another doctor as a patient. Like, of course I know what mirtazapine will do. You know, I know that it will make me tired and that I will be hungry. But I have to pretend like, oh, do you think that mirtazapine is a good medicine for me? Okay then. You know, like I have to pretend that I'm like a person who has never heard of mirtazapine in their life. So I have to turn off my brain, and so then like my heart comes more to the forefront. And then I have to like close that off too. So then it's like, well, I don't get anything of what is being said, you know? And maybe that's what led to the misunderstanding. I don't know. I do think that the doctor is a pretty bad communicator as well, because I don't see how I could have misunderstood this so badly that she had wanted to write a sick leave, but I had said no because I wanted to talk to my boss first, when the whole reason I said I'll talk to my boss is because she said that she didn't want to. But I thought that she didn't want to, and that I should talk to my boss first, and then we would see. I don't see how I could have gotten it wrong, unless she really, I don't know what she said to me. And yeah, I did get mad at my doctor. I said, but it feels like you're talking to me like I'm, you know, I said that this is a difficult period for me because you guys are writing to like check if I have autism, and so I don't know anymore what my brain, I don't know what I can trust anymore. Yeah, it's hard communicating my FI, and since my FI is my whole being, I feel sorry for all the patients who need to explain their symptoms, because you know, like you can't say to a doctor like, oh, my headache is blue. You know, this is the kind of thing that an INFP would do. You know, they go to the doctor and say, I have a blue headache. You know, and then you're like, the doctor is like, well, what does that mean? And this is something that I do with a lot of my patients. I have a patient who was like, oh, my stomach isn't functioning. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not functioning? Like, does it hurt? No, it doesn't really hurt. It just doesn't feel good. And I'm like, reminded of myself saying like, oh, the feeling isn't good. Like, I need concrete words, you know? And I know that the doctor needs concrete words, but I cannot give them because FI is untranslatable to like physical concrete stuff. Like, I do have SI, which is like my little tether to the universe. And so like I can say like, okay, I haven't slept well last night, you know? But if you ask me like through time, if I've slept well or not, it's difficult to say sometimes. If you ask me if I'm hungry right now, yeah, I'll say yes or no. Because I can tell that kind of bodily feeling. But things are rarely so black and white for me in my brain. And it's so difficult to get that out and show the doctors, this is what I need help with. This is what I need. Please, like, this is where the pain is. Especially when it's about like psychiatric stuff, you know? It's like, well, I don't know exactly what the problem is. I know that there's a problem. And certain patients with physical symptoms have this same sort of problem. And I'm thinking of the NI users who are SC, like, who have their SC as their fourth function. I think that they can't have it easy either. Because by the time that they've noticed the physical symptom, I think it's like already too late. Anyway, but I had this patient and she was like, yeah, my stomach is not working. And I was like feeling her abdomen and she was like, that's not where the stomach is. And I was like, yes, you are right. It's the stomach is up here, but you know, you're not being very concrete with the symptoms. So I have to check like your whole abdomen. And she was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, are you constipated? Okay, I'm sorry I'm talking about this, but are you? And she was like, no, I'm not. And then I was like, okay, but you said that you have problems with that. And she was like, yes, I do. And I was like, ah. And that is how I felt as a patient talking to my doctor. it's like, we don't speak the same language. And I know the kind of language that the doctor wants, but I can't do that at the same time as being a patient. Because in my life, I cannot see things in a medically sound way. And I think that certain types have harder than others with healthcare. And I think that INFPs, we have a hard time because describing our symptoms, you know, the social interaction with another person on the phone or face-to-face is difficult because you have to advocate for yourself. And I think that INFPs have a hard time advocating for themselves. We can like be for certain passions and certain causes, but it's difficult for us to like be pushy, you know, and you have to kind of be a little bit pushy to manage in the healthcare system. And also, like, I have a hard time being black and white and straight cuts because everything is so vague, you know, and maybe I might be having a good day or a bad day and everything is influenced by my emotions. So to sum things up, I am basically the most pathological person alive, according to my censor therapist. My doctor and I have gotten kind of okay now, but there was a huge misunderstanding that I don't think is wholly from my part. I think that she was also difficult. She also had difficulties communicating. So obviously this was a clash. And in the end, I got what I wanted, which is great, but wow, the amount of mental energy for this, and also the amount of humiliation that you have to subject yourself, having these things being written about you in your own medical journal, is difficult, but I can find ways to laugh about it. And if that means that my sense of humor is different from my sensing peers, then I'm actually very glad about it. I'm very happy to be an intuitive. I'm happy to be an INFP. I think that we're the best, okay? Don't tell the other types, but I think that we're the best. I think that we are very strange. We're very strange creatures and pretty interesting for others to look at. They might not like us always, but I think that they do find us interesting. And I think that that we have a hard time in healthcare system because we don't communicate things in the way that others do. But that we are the ones who know ourselves best, okay? And so the discrepancy between how others see us and what we see ourselves as is actually pretty interesting, because I think that INFPs, we know who we are and other people don't, which is a discussion for another day, because this video is very, very long. But I think that a lot of FE users would disagree. I think that they would see that your identity is what you present to others, when I think that that's not the case. And your identity is not your diagnoses, but it does inform you of what struggles you have. So in that way, it is part of your identity. So yeah, I've opened up to tons of questions more than answers, but I hope that you guys had a great day. I hope that you guys do not need to go through this diagnostic process like I've been doing, because this takes a lot of energy. I've also stopped taking mirtazapine because it was making me cranky. My supervisor got me a wonderful pin, which I showed on Instagram. I'll post about it later. And it's like your social battery, like from sad face to happy face, and there's a little slidey thingy. So I really like that. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Bye.